The entity behavior analytics will give you a detailed perspective as to what is happening from a user standpoint and the machine standpoint. In essence, the desktop or the laptop or the servers that are part of your corporate environment. With the kind of insider attacks that are happening and the focus that has completely shifted to the endpoint with the digitization that we have observed and users working completely remote, it becomes imperative that you keep a track on what is happening on an endpoint, especially on a behavior term. The dashboard gives you a great perspective of the number of events that were received and the associated alerts. Of course, being a demonstration dashboard, you will see more number of alerts, but primarily in a production environment, you may not see this amount of data as far as alerts are concerned. A quick categorization of alerts in the form of critical, high, medium, and low respectively, the events, and of course, the network standpoint of the connections that were observed. Let us get into the specifics of the alerts that are generated out of the entity behavior and endpoint detection. The labeling is critical, high, medium, and low respectively, and the analyst can always switch over between each of the categorization. From a detection standpoint, we use a lot of analytical models that are running behind, over 550 plus. Not only that, we also focus a lot in identifying malicious activities using machine learning algorithms real time. If an alert is being identified, we quickly see what is the rule name that is associated to this alert, the associated description, the categorization or priority. In terms of V mapping to MITRE ATT&CK matrix, we call out what is the kind of tactic or the technique that is associated to this particular attack sequence. And of course, the host name. For an analyst to analyze this activity further, all he has to do is click upon the event or the alert. The noise filtration is completely carried out, and the quick perspective that helps the analyst is, of course, what is the username, what is the process path, and what is the timestamp on which host this activity occurred. If the analyst may want to get into the specifics of this activity, the normalized event is tagged on the same alert. If a level 3 or level 4 may want to dig deep into the analysis, the associated raw message is equally available in the form of JSON. From a detailed study perspective, an analyst or a CISO can have a quick insight on what is the current posture of organization is like by looking at the MITRE dashboard. The dashboard gives a quick insight of what kind of techniques and the tactics that are being consistently observed within the organization, a quick trend of tactics, the top 5 hosts on which majority of techniques were observed. These are super intuitive. Say for example, you may want to identify where did PowerShell execute. You click upon PowerShell and you identify that host NPC2 was majorly exploited by PowerShell. The top tactics, the hosts on which majority of techniques and the tactics were observed, the trend of techniques and tactics going back into the timeline, and of course the tactics and the techniques that were observed on individual hosts. If you may want to understand what has happened on NPC2, you may just have to click on NPC2 as a bar and you get to see what all techniques and the tactics that were observed. In this case, PowerShell, account discovery, and so on and so forth. You may also get into the specifics from the same screen itself. Now let us understand, if we want to get into the specifics of what are those 329 events associated to account discovery. You may click upon the account discovery. The screen takes you to a different page, and it gives you a detailed insight of where did these activities took place in the form of host names. We could see that there are a couple of hosts on which account discovery was observed. The associated processes or the events are tagged onto the same place. The host on which the technique was observed, and more importantly, a quick timeline of what else has happened on this particular end machine. Now, if you may want to get into a further detailing, the analyst can click on the event, and the associated logs are tagged onto this particular alert. If an analyst may want to understand what else has happened on the host, the analyst just have to click upon the associated host name, and the screen comes up with the entire timeline of the techniques and the tactics that were observed over the host, not just limiting to account discovery, but you can see that the activity started with execution. The analyst will have an opportunity to go back and understand how the attack happened by getting into the time range of at least 24 hours backward. The associated events are tagged over here. The techniques that were observed on the host are recorded over here, and the entire process executions are also detailed associated to this particular host. For this level of triage to be done, or for this level of analysis to be built, the analyst will take multiple days in tying the entire story together. And this is one major reason why advanced attacks completely go unnoticed. Now let us come back and focus on high-level perspective of deception. Even before we move on to deception, I may also want to focus upon the flexibility that the platform offers in terms of building rules. The analyst will have an opportunity to have rules completely ingested in the form of Sigma. Apart from that, the analyst can happily go ahead and build his own rules in the form of detection, and can also write query-based rules at the same time. A simple help window is also provided to give a better insight to an analyst in how to write a specific rule at a given timestamp, and of course to understand how to build a specific use case.